I have just written 3 checks, each for $100,000, 2 to the charities that are most important to my wife, and 1 to the Wounded Warrior Project, which is my own personal charity. We give away money every year, but not nearly as much as we do now. The amount of money that is in the bank is sufficient, and it is going to come back to her to screw her over. The name I go by is Kurt Vinhal. I was completely unaware of the things that the woman I loved actually did up until about 6 weeks ago. Absolutely, I adore you. I was going to make her regret all of the lies that she had told her, but that love is no longer with me. After the get-together with our friends on July 4th, I should have known that something wasn't quite right from the beginning. That must have been the moment when she made the decision to establish her own independence. That evening, she was the one who started the sexual activity. In no way does that occur. As if she hadn't done so in more than 17 years, she cheated on me. Her energy was so contagious. Now that I think about it, I realize that it was probably sexual misconduct. At that time, I was unaware of it. I was aware that she had consumed a single drink or 2, but nothing that was excessive. I was simply taking pleasure in my new wife. She shut me down by saying that it was me with blue balls and her complaining that that's all you ever want to do. I had hoped that it would continue, but later that week, when I tried to initiate sex again, she shut me down. Earlier, I stated that I had no idea what was going on. There were hints, and there were a lot of them. They were simply not visible to me at that time. It was at the Halloween party that I achieved my Sherlock Holmes moment. The house of a friend was where we were. My wife, Melanie, expressed a desire to dress up in an outfit that was revealing. Despite the fact that we were all friends, the idea of it made me uncomfortable. Laughing at it might be a good idea. My wife is also capable of pulling it off. She was dressed in fishnet stockings, a short black skirt, CFM pumps, a bustier, and a mask. She was 5 feet 3 inches tall, weighed 120 pounds, and had auburn hair. No, this was not the Sherlock Holmes moment. At the party, I lost track of my wife. She had been getting quite a lot of attention with her outfit. I hadn't seen her for about half an hour and was wondering where she had gotten to. Then I saw her. She came into the room where I was at. This was the Sherlock Holmes moment. She had that look. Most men know what I mean. That just got screwed look of serenity on her face. Then it was elementary, Watson. 4th of July lie, guilt sex, extra volunteering hours at her job at the non-profit animal shelter, the distant looks on her face, the irritability, and the blue balls. No sex for me since August. Wow, how could I have missed it? Clueless? No, just naive and trusting, I said to myself, trying to justify and make myself feel better. Who was it? I looked around and didn't see anyone looking. Melanie and I come from different worlds. Well, almost. She is from the West Coast, I am from Iowa. We met our junior year of college at Cornell College. No, not Cornell University, Cornell College, a liberal arts college in Iowa, close to home for me. I grew up about 30 minutes away in a conservative community of mostly Dutch descendants. I don't know why there are a lot of Dutch in Iowa. Dutch people living in their coastal country in Europe with dikes, canals, channels, and lowland marshes, moving to America and settling in Iowa, flat middle of the country, cornfields, cows, chickens, and churches. I don't get it, but that is where I'm from, and it made me who I am. Melanie grew up in California, not the more conservative, relatively northern California. No, she came from Southern California, about as liberal as they come. So you may ask, how did she end up at Cornell College? Well, it is a liberal arts school, but that liberal is all relative. In actuality, her parents met there and moved to California for their careers. They felt that getting a dose of Midwest values at their alma mater would be good for her. So Melanie Scott applied, was accepted, and enrolled in Cornell College. I was studying for an engineering class, and I was majoring in mechanical engineering. I heard an exasperated voice ask the librarian, "Do you have an Algebra for Dummies book?" I was studying for the class, and I was studying for the library. I'm retaking this class, and I still don't get it. Math has always come easy for me, so as soon as I heard the word algebra, I looked up to see who was speaking. There, at the desk, was the most beautiful girl, no, woman, I had ever seen, auburn hair, cute face. The woman behind the desk checked her computer and said, "Sorry, miss, it's checked out. I'm going to fail the test. I am unable to fail it." "What am I going to actually do?" the lady said. "Perhaps you ought to return to your dorm room and study, go through the practice questions," said the redhead. "My roommate and her boyfriend are there," the lady said. "Well, you're welcome to study here, but we close in 25 minutes, the girl said, dropping her book on a table and sitting down with a big, heavy sigh. "I'll never get any studying done," the girl said. "Well, you're welcome to study here." After getting up from my seat at the table, I made my way over to her. I stood there, taking in the scene, and I was speechless. She looked at me and asked, "What do you want?" I stutteringly approached her and said, "I am able to assist you." She looked at me with a perplexed expression on her face and asked, "How?" "I'm really good at math," she asked. "Well, I don't think that anyone would believe that you were me, even if you put on a dress, so you couldn't take the test for me." "I could help you study," I said. "I don't think my brain can absorb it. I'm really good at math. Try as I might." "I'm not very good at math," she said with a resigned tone. "I'd like to give it a shot," I responded. "Why would you want to assist me?" "I want to help a damsel in distress," I said. "Yeah, now I was getting smooth," she asked. "I want to help it. To introduce myself, my name is Kurt, and the damsel's name is Melanie," she said with a chuckle. "What kind of fee would you ask me to pay?" she inquired, assuming that I was a teacher. "That depends on how well you do on your test," I said in response. While she was thinking, she said, "Okay," and then she went on to say, "If I pass, I'll buy you pizza. There is no Domino's. You are obligated to take me to Gus and Tony's if you are successful. In Mount Vernon, Iowa, there is a pizza restaurant that has a long and illustrious history." All right, it will be worth it, I decided to test my luck. What will it be worth if you get a C on the test? I asked myself while pushing my luck. Then I'll give you a kiss after dinner. Should we consider an A or B? I asked, hoping that perhaps we would be able to go on a date. If you can help me get an A or B, I'll let the girls out of the corral, she said as she cupped her hands on her chest. My eyes must have gotten huge because she laughed at me and then said, "If I get an A, you can have your way with me." She had no faith in her ability to learn and my ability to teach. Well, with that incentive, I told her we had better go someplace quiet to study. So, we hopped into my car and headed off to Denny's. We grabbed a booth. I ordered some nachos and told the waitress that we would be there for a number of hours, but I'd make sure to leave her a good tip. Melanie was not joking, she had no interest in mathematics, much less algebra. She was unable to comprehend the concept that letters represented numbers that were not known to her. As a result, I began by asking her elementary math questions, such as what is the value of 3 plus 4? That was clear to her. 7, she said. I responded, "Okay, do you see that space that is represented by a line?" The answer was yep, she said. Well, in algebra, we use letters to represent the spaces, I went on to explain. Why is that? She inquired. As a result of the fact that various locations might have varying values, we do require something to differentiate between them. Let me show you. I wrote down 3 plus 4 equals A. Think of that as the space with which we were previously familiar. In this particular instance, what does the letter R stand for? 7, she stated. I wrote down, okay, now this, and then I asked, what is the B for? 3 plus B equals 7. As a result, we have utilized two distinct letters to represent two distinct values. In this equation, I wrote down 3x plus b equals 6. I then asked myself, what does b stand for in this equation? The answer was b is 2, she stated. Thus, in the field of algebra, we make use of letters and numbers, and when we multiply them, we do not use the letter x, but rather place them next to each other. Therefore, the equation 3xb equals 6 would be written as 3 asterisk b equals 6. What is the value of the b? 2, because 3 times 2 is equal to 6. Alright, dividing up now. What is the value of b in the equation 6b equals 3? Still 2, because 6 divided by 2 is equal to 3. Now you're getting the hang of it. We sat there until almost 3 o'clock in the morning, and a number of times I saw the light go on. She was getting it. Her class was at 10, so I brought her to her dorm and told her not to worry and she should get a full 6 hours of sleep. Don't try to cram before the test in the morning, it will only give you anxiety and confuse you, I advised. She thanked me and gave me a peck on the cheek. Then she said with a mischievous look in her eye, I hope I get an A. Then she turned around and left. Was she saying what I thought she was saying? I thought to myself, I can't wait to find out how she does. Well, I didn't get to have my way with her, nor did the girls get let out, but I did get pizza and a kiss, actually more than one kiss, and the girls felt like they were excited from what I could tell through her sweater, that is. Things progressed, and she finally did get an A on a test. Soon, we were an item. The summer break was approaching, and I needed to find an internship. I had hoped to find a place in Southern California where we could continue our relationship, but I was unsuccessful. However, I was able to find an internship at the NUMMI plant in the San Francisco Bay Area. The drive would take me 6 or more hours, depending on the traffic, so I would only get to see her on the weekends. I had the opportunity to meet her parents, and they told me that I had helped them settle their daughter down. We definitely made the most of our time together. I was exhausted every weekend, and she was wild in bed. In the fall, we headed back to college. I studied a lot. I was motivated to get great grades so I could get a great job so I could marry Melanie. Melanie was working on her BA in Human Resources. We both studied hard, and we played hard. It was a great year. We talked about our hopes, dreams, and goals. My hope was to be married to her and have a bunch of kids. Melanie was into zero population growth philosophy, however, she told me 2 kids, preferably 1 girl and 1 boy, to replace ourselves. So, I changed my hope to 1 girl and 1 boy. Well, I guess I'll have to really push for a good-paying job, I thought to myself. I wanted a nice-sized house with 3 bedrooms, 1.5 bathrooms, and approximately 1,500 square feet of space. She wanted a house with 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, and 3,000 square feet of space so that we could have guests over and they would have a place to sleep. She wanted to be able to volunteer at her favorite non-profit organizations, the American Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals, ASPCA, and Planned Parenthood. I couldn't understand that. This is coming from my Iowa conservative values. The one organization wanted to save baby animals, and the other helped to terminate baby humans. That seemed hypocritical to me. We had a few discussions about it until I just stopped talking about it. I know this sounds strange, but I wanted to visit every state capitol building and all of the capitals in Europe. In addition, I wanted to hike through Europe. In the late winter of my senior year, I was offered a job at a manufacturing plant that supplies to the Big Three. Actually, they supplied to all the automotive manufacturers. My experience interning at NUMMI really paid off. This meant, however, that we would have to move to Michigan, in the Detroit area. I drove back from my 4th interview with the news that I was offered a job. Driving 9 hours back, I thought about a lot of things. First and foremost was asking Melanie to marry me. I was sure she would say yes. Second was how to help her find a job in the same area. Third was where to live. Detroit has a lot of suburbs. I thought that it would be best to rent an apartment until we knew the area, then start looking for a starter home. I had it all pictured in my mind: getting married, buying a house, having kids, baseball, soccer, ballet, everything for my wife and kids. Then, as the kids left for college, we would start traveling. As I drove back, I made a stop in Chicago. I had my $5,000 signing bonus in my pocket. I was going to buy an engagement ring. I found a family-owned jewelry shop and purchased a $4,000 engagement ring and wedding band set. I was so happy. I got back to Mount Vernon and called Melanie. I said I wanted to take her out to dinner. I proposed during dessert. She said yes, with tears in her eyes. Then I told her about the job offer. She was glad I got the job, but Michigan, really? Isn't it cold like 10 months of the year? Detroit, honey, I said, it's no colder than Iowa in the winter. There is simply an abundance of things to do there, you are going to adore it. Well, wedding planned. Not a lot of time to do that. We got married in California on May 23rd, took a honeymoon to Niagara Falls, then set up our first apartment. June 1st, I started my job. No, my career. Melanie had obtained a job working for a temp agency. She was working for the agency doing the hiring and all the other human resource stuff. It was great experience, but she really wanted a job working for a big company that hired their own employees. Well, life has a way of surprising us sometimes. We were going to wait for a few years to have kids, but 8 months after we got married, found us looking at an EPT and wondering how our life would change now that a baby was on the way. We started looking for a house right away. We bought a Cape Cod-style house, 3 bedrooms, 1 bath. Not too big, but good enough to start our family in. 9 months went fast, and we were blessed with a baby girl, Kaylee Jane. I call her KJ, but Melanie always calls her Kaylee. She was perfect. Strawberry blonde hair, a combination of my blonde and Melanie's auburn, blue eyes. I know they said that they would change, but they never did. 10 fingers, 10 toes. She had me wrapped around her finger as soon as she wrapped her fingers around mine. After the baby, things changed, of course. You say, well, I knew that there would be changes, but I didn't expect one of them. Melanie showed no interest in sex, even months after the birth. I had to coax her every time. I couldn't believe it. My wife, who was wild in bed, had no interest in it anymore. We talked about it and had several heated discussions, but I rarely got her to give in. I wanted to try for that second baby, hopefully a boy. I asked our family physician about it, and she said it may be a byproduct of postpartum depression. She didn't seem depressed, though. She doted over KJ almost as much as I did. We were happy other than in the bedroom. I asked her to see someone. She went begrudgingly to a therapist, and she said it was a form of PTSD. Melanie, in her mind, had a terrible birthing experience. The therapist hoped it would, with more therapy, of course, be able to be fixed. I wanted a boy so bad. I begged her for sex. After a couple of years, I started plotting her cycle. I would figure out the best time for her to get pregnant and put on a full-court press for sex on those days. Well, the sex happened some of the time, but no baby. I loved Melanie, and after a few more years, I put all my thoughts of having a boy in the back of my mind. I would enjoy my wife and our lovely daughter. In fact, if I was truly honest, I put a lot of my time, love, and devotion into KJ. Melanie decided to stay home to raise her and never return to a real job, just volunteering. Now, 17 years after KJ was born, new big house, great job, things in the household seemed all right. I couldn't understand what was going on at the party. I waited 10 minutes to see if I could figure out who it was that she had just screwed, but still nothing. I now just wanted to get away from there. Melanie, I said, I feel another one of my migraines coming on. Naturally, I was feigning disappointment as I said, I want to get home and get into bed before it hits the worst. She appeared to be dissatisfied. Are you sure that it is a migraine and not just a touch of the flu? She inquired. I get these enough to know, Mel, I snapped at her, which was not something I normally do. Okay, we leave now, I said. I get these enough to know. I was quiet and kept my eyes closed on the way home. I'm sure she thought it was to block out the light from the headlights, but in reality, I just didn't want to look at her because I knew that if I did, I would cry. She had a worried expression on her face. "Let me tell Susan and Jim," she said. Melanie started to speak to me, but before she uttered 2 words, I snapped. "I just need you to be quiet and take the back streets so there are fewer lights." I was playing it up good. This would be my worst migraine I have ever had. We made it home, and I hurried to our bedroom, stripped, and climbed into bed with the lights off. Melanie came in and started shuffling around. I snapped again, "Be quiet, you're killing me." She backed out of the bedroom and quietly shut the door. All right, it was time for me to think about how I was going to find out who it was. Would I have to hire a private investigator? Just at that moment, I heard her phone ring. I crept to the door and cracked it open. She was downstairs, and I could just overhear her conversation. "No, I can't come back," she said. "He is in a lot of pain. This is the most severe migraine he has ever experienced. Even though I would like to return, I am unable to abandon him." What would you do if Mary was experiencing homesickness? You probably would, just to get another piece of this, Mary said. There were 2 Marys in our group of friends, and I had to figure out which husband it was. Then I heard it. "I know, Jack," she said. "Not only did I want to spend more time with you, but I also wanted to give Kurt a few seconds of sloppy time, just like I did after the first time. I could never do that tonight, though. He can hardly move." Jack Anderson. Figures, another California liberal. He and Mary moved here about 7 years ago with their daughter Jasmine. Jasmine was a year older than KJ, but they were still friends. She was going to Wayne State University and was staying at home to save on dorm costs. Jack Anderson, I can't believe it. He was a salesman for a company that supplied our dyes for my company's production. We were their biggest customer. I'll make him pay 3-fold. I crept back to my room. I know the old saying is revenge is a dish best served cold, but I can't agree with that. I ascribe to the fast food way of revenge, hot and now, and preferably before they even know it's coming. I had to work out a plan. That is what I do as an engineer. I plan. I see a problem, and I plan steps to correct it. First things first, I would need to ensure that I had as little contact with Melanie as I could. I didn't know how I could cover my anger with her right now. Tomorrow is Saturday. That is one of Melanie's days to volunteer at the animal shelter. I had to wake in the morning, not 100%, but good enough to where she wouldn't feel she had to stay home with me. KJ, now a senior in high school, could always take care of me if I needed anything. About an hour later, Melanie came in and turned on the light. I screamed in agony. She shut it back off quickly. Then she whispered, "I'm going to stay in one of the guest bedrooms tonight." In response, I groaned in agreement and said, "I hope you feel better right now." In the morning, Melanie checked in on me, but I feigned sleep. She grabbed her clothes for the day and left the bedroom. After I heard her tell KJ to keep an eye on me, she left for work. I got up, took a shower, got dressed, and walked downstairs to the kitchen. I saw KJ making breakfast, pancakes, eggs, and bacon. "Hey, Dad, Mom said you had a really bad migraine last night. I had not anticipated that you would be awake until noon. For breakfast, would you like me to prepare something for you?" "I think that would be wonderful, KJ. You're the best daughter a guy could have." Half she smiled and looked at me with love in her eyes. She was my world now. I had to handle this situation with the least impact on her. It was her senior year, after all. Next year, she'd be off at college. We chit-chatted about school, boys, sports, etc. Then I asked her, "Have you made up your mind on which college you want to go to next fall?" "My father, I am not yet certain. Although I am aware that I want to pursue a career in engineering, I do not wish to make you angry." "What could possibly make me angry?" I inquired, feeling a sense of pride that my daughter was following in my footsteps. "Well, I think I want to go to Cornell." "Wow, our alma mater really is. That is fantastic." "The answer is Cornell University, Dad." To be honest, when I heard that, I couldn't help but feel a little bit let down. Despite this, the other Cornell is a highly regarded engineering school. I suppose I could get used to spending time there. They are among the very best, which is wonderful to hear. If either of my daughters were to graduate from Cornell, I would be extremely proud of her.
Are you able to submit the application at this point?
About 4 weeks ago, I dispatched it. I would really appreciate it if I could get some information before Christmas so that I can begin making preparations. All right, I'll check to see if I can make use of any of my connections to assist you in any way that I can. I think that would be wonderful, Dad. I informed KJ that I was going to go to work after breakfast because I had a few things that I needed to take care of. As a result, I went to the office to make my plans. However, before I did anything else, I made sure to take care of my daughter. I looked at the biographies of all the engineers working at our plant and the other plants that our company operates. None of the engineers working at this plant were from Cornell University, but 2 of them working at one of the other plants were, including a department head that I was familiar with from attending corporate meetings and training. I'll call him first thing Monday morning, I told myself. Now, for vengeance on my wife, possibly my soon-to-be ex-wife, and Jack Anderson. He would be the easier one. I spoke to a couple of guys on the production line. Yes, they work on Saturdays. A couple of them I knew were from the wrong side of the tracks, some of them even had criminal records. I asked a few of them who I'd need to talk to in order to get a nasty girl for a prank. Talk to Andy, he'll put you in the right position. Nevertheless, if it is for you, I would recommend that you use a rubber. Bingo, that is exactly what I'm looking for, I thought to myself. Andy didn't work on Saturdays, so I would have to wait until Monday on that as well. I needed to make a list for Monday, which included talking to Ben in New Jersey for KJ, talking to Andy, talking to Human Resources, cashing out my 401k, and calling a divorce lawyer for information in case we couldn't come to an agreement. I knew a few divorced men, their ordeals were horrible. If they thought that they got screwed while they were married, it was a total screw job in the divorce. I was determined that would not happen to me if it came to that. Today, however, I could get some more done. I headed to the bank and withdrew all but $10,000. I went to another bank and started a checking account in my name only. Also, I got a credit card in my name only. Then I called my credit card company and paid off the card and reduced the limit to $1,000. Then I called a private investigator. I wanted to meet with him to discuss my options. I needed to find out Jack's routine. We made an appointment for Monday. Then I went to Radio Shack and bought motion-sensitive cameras and voice-activated recorders. It was about noon, so I called Melanie to see when she would be home. "Hi, honey, sorry about last night." "Sorry, I snapped at you," I told her, having to almost grit my teeth to not let her know anything was wrong. "How are you feeling? Do you need me to come home?" "No, I'm feeling a lot better. I'm going to run some errands, then work in the yard to try to get the leaves all raked up." "That's good to hear. We're slammed busy, so I probably won't be home until dinner time," she said. I wondered if I should believe her or go check up on her. It didn't matter, in fact, this would probably work out best. I'd have hours to do what I needed to do. So, home I went. It took me about 3 hours to wire the house. Luckily, KJ was out with friends all day. Teenagers don't tend to spend much time at home. I tested the system. I had it all programmed to record on a new laptop I bought and hid in the basement. No one goes down there anyways, not even for laundry. Melanie had to have that on the second floor at a remodel expense of over 20 grand, all to make my bride happy. Now, I had to get outside and start raking the leaves so I would be at least half done when she comes home about 5 o'clock. She poked her head out the sliding glass door and told me she was home and asking me, "How are you feeling?" "Okay, enough to rake leaves. I should be able to get them all bagged up by around 7 o'clock. "I'll come out and help you," she said, "just let me change." 5 minutes later, she came out of the garage, rake in hand, and we raked up the leaves. I didn't say much, tried not to let her know that I knew. If I tried talking too much, I'm sure she would sense something was wrong. We finished around 6:30, and she said she was going to start dinner. I went up to take a shower and change into a pair of sweats and a Cornell College sweatshirt. I wondered what kind of reaction that would get.
Would she remember the good times?
I came downstairs as she was setting the table. "Dinner will be ready in about 10 minutes or so," she said. "Good, that should be just enough time for me to get the bags of leaves out to the curb for pickup Monday." I opened the slider and stepped into the backyard. I opened the gate to the side yard and hauled the bags, one at a time, to the curb. 15 bags already, and the trees weren't even half empty of leaves yet. I walked back in, stopped at the half bath in the mudroom, and washed my hands. Then I sat down to eat, chicken breasts on rice with, of course, California medley for the vegetables. Wow, it is amazing how little things could set me off. I smiled and ate quietly. She was talking about what happened at the shelter that day. "Busy, busy, busy," she said. I only half listened and made a few sounds. After dinner, we watched TV for about an hour before I said, "I'm going to go to bed early to try to get rid of the rest of this migraine. It doesn't hurt very much, but the extra rest should knock it out." So, at 8:30, I was in bed. I think I was asleep by 8:45. I had gotten very little sleep last night, so I was exhausted. Sunday, I got up to get ready for church. KJ met me at the bottom of the stairs, ready to go. I asked Melanie if she was going, and she said not this week. Funny, she had only gone a couple of times since July 4th, another clue I missed. I never pushed it with her though, she was always sporadic on church attendance. At church, the sermon was on forgiveness.
Could I forgive Melanie, I thought?
Why had she done this? I know some women see 40 as a huge thing. Was she trying to recapture her youth before she turned 40 in a few months? At the end of the service, I just sat there. One of my friends came up to me and said, "So, how was your Halloween?" I turned to my friend. "It was the devil's night," I said. "It was one of the worst nights of my life." KJ said he came home with one of the worst migraines he's ever had. That wasn't it, I thought that was pretend so I could avoid your mother. I couldn't tell KJ that though. "I'm sorry to hear that, Kurt. I'll pray for you." "Pray for the whole family," I said, then I walked away. When we got home, lunch was on the table, roast beef with all the fixings. I'll hand it to Melanie, she had become a great cook. When we had gotten married, it was hit or miss. How can you mess up manwich? I don't know if they still have a chunky-style manwich or not, but she had made me that, and I put it on a bun and ate it. I didn't say a disparaging word. About an hour after dinner, she realized when she looked in the refrigerator that she hadn't cooked up the hamburger. We laughed about it, and I told her everything she did made me happy. That was then, this is now. After lunch, I decided to tell Melanie that I was going to go out in the woods to check on my deer blind. "Oh, I didn't know you were going hunting this year." "You haven't for the last few," she said. "Yeah, I think I'll go out at least once." For those that don't live in Michigan, November 15th is opening day for rifle deer hunting. It isn't an official state holiday, but it may as well be. Half the plants shut down for the first few days of the season. That would give me a good excuse to be gone for at least one day. Sunday night was back to normal. I didn't initiate sex, so we didn't have it. That was all right with me, I wouldn't put my tool in there now for all the tea in China. What an odd expression. I know that would be a lot and worth a lot, but where would you store it? Monday, this would be a busy day. First things first, I got into work at 7 o'clock and called Ben in New Jersey. I had to leave a message, I guess department heads didn't come in until 9 o'clock in Jersey. Second, I emailed Human Resources to set up a time to sit down with them. Third, I walked the floor to see if Andy had a few minutes to talk to me. I found him waiting for stock, so I asked if we could speak. "Sure, Kurt, what do you want?" "Well, it's personal, and I'd rather not talk about it on the floor. Do you think you would have some time today, or if not, then after work?" "Sure, once I get the line up and running, it practically runs itself." I can ask one of the guys to cover for me. Great, meet me in my office when you can. I'll be waiting. In about half an hour, Andy walked in.
What can I do for you, boss man?
Andy, you know I'm not your boss man. You should be, you're the only one that knows what the hell is going on around here. I smiled then frowned. I did know everything going on around here, but I didn't know about what was going on at home, clueless. Well, I used to be, Andy. I need to talk to you about something personal, and I need to know that it will not get out into the plant or anywhere, actually. I need complete secrecy on this, well, unless it is something to do with me helping you plan a mass attack or something. I'm all in and won't say a word to no one. I'll even be your alibi if you want me to. It isn't that bad, at least for most people it won't be. I'm hearing you, keep talking, he said. I want to get a hooker for, he cut me off, saying, whoa, I didn't think you were that kind. It's not for me, Andy. I need to do a little payback to an ex-friend of mine. Why would you want to get him a hooker if he's an ex-friend? Is he blackmailing you? No, let's call it revenge and leave it at that. So, what are you going to do, get pictures and blackmail him? No, I may get pictures, but it won't be to blackmail him. I am looking for a particular type of hooker, one that can look like your average housewife. Oh, I get it. You want to get him in trouble with his old lady. That will probably happen, but what I really want is for him to get chlamydia. Would that be possible to find someone that could do that in 2 weeks, on the 14th of November? Wow, that's cruel, but I like it. Remind me never to piss you off. Do you think you could do it? Yeah, I think I can. The biggest problem would be getting the hooker to be willing to carry the disease for a week or so. I can pay $1,000, would that do it? I don't know, she'd be out of service for at least 2 weeks. Okay, how about $2,000? That's $1,000 a week and $500 for you as a finder's fee. You got it, boss man. I'll let you know all the details as we get closer. You line up the girl. Andy left, and I sat back and smiled. Now for the next part of my plan. As the engineer that handles most of the production equipment, I get a lot of people asking my opinion on different aspects of the plant. I keep all the business cards of the salesmen, engineers, millwrights, etc. I just had to find the right one. I started going through the stack and pulled out XYZ Die Incorporated. We hadn't bought but a few pieces from them over the years, but that might change drastically soon. I called the number on the card and asked for an appointment to sit down with the salesman and die maker. They jumped at the chance they could be here this afternoon. I was leaning back in my chair thinking of how my plans would unfold when my boss, the CEO, popped his head in and said, "Good morning." "Oh, hi Brad. I was just going to see if I could get an appointment to talk with you this morning, but I figured I'd have to wait until Jill got in to schedule it. I've got time right now if that works for you." "Sure, that would be great, thanks." Brad said, "Hey, I heard you came in for a few hours on Saturday. Was there a problem I should know about?" "Well, that is kind of what I want to talk to you about." "What is it?" "Well, it's personal and has very little to do with work. Kurt, you have been here for almost 20 years, we're like family, you know that. You can talk to me about anything." So, I told him the whole story. I asked him to keep it between us, and he assured me it would be. I still can't believe Melanie would do that, but I guess you never know. I guess I'll have to keep my eyes open in my own marriage too. So, how can I help? The a-hole ex-friend is the salesman for ABC Dies. In fact, I got his foot in the door here 7 years ago. I'd like to pursue another die maker, and then if they can do what we need them to do at or below the same cost, I'd like to tell ABC that we no longer need them. I don't make those decisions, though. I can do that, Brad said. Who are you going to call to replace them? I've already got an appointment for this afternoon with XYZ Die. We already buy some of our dies from them, and they perform well. What will I tell ABC when I inform them? Tell them that we are unhappy with the service we are getting from their salesman and that XYZ has promised lower prices and faster turnaround. Of course, that is providing the meeting today goes as planned. Let me know this afternoon how things go. Thanks, Brad. It's great to be part of a family. He left, and I smiled. Plans were coming together. Next, I called a divorce attorney and made an appointment for Tuesday. I checked my email, and I had an email from Human Resources. I could stop by any time before 11 o'clock. I decided to go right then. You never know what will happen in a manufacturing plant. I could get a call in 5 minutes and be busy putting out fires for the rest of the morning. Sherry, the HR director, invited me in and asked what she could do for me. I told her I had some personal issues and that I would need to cash out my 401k. You're going to take a huge hit unless you roll it into another retirement account. I know that, but I can't help that. What do I need to do? She had me fill out all the necessary paperwork and again tried to dissuade me. Before I left, I asked her how much vacation or personal time I had left. She looked it up and said I had 4 weeks plus 10 personal days. Wow, that was 6 weeks. That would help me in my plans. I would be getting the disbursement direct deposited into my new checking account within 10 business days. That afternoon, the meeting with XYZ went well. They were bending over backwards to get our business. I had asked Brad, Mr. Smith, the production manager, and a couple of the production techs to be in the meeting. They all had great questions, especially the techs. The XYZ salesman and die maker were able to handle all of them and gave us all confidence that we were making a great move. I talked to Brad after the meeting and asked him to hold off talking to ABC until next Monday. He agreed that would give XYZ time to get things in the works. After work, I met with the private investigator. I needed him to follow Jack and find out as much about him as possible, especially his daily routine. Tuesday, I met with the lawyer. I found out that it could take months, and we are in a no-fault state, so getting evidence of adultery was unnecessary. Also, that I would get screwed financially in a divorce. Great, I thought. I have to beg to get screwed while we were married, and when I go for a divorce, it would happen automatically. Oh, I told him I would think about it to see if I could come to terms with her past indiscretions. If we could somehow reconcile, I would be better off financially. If, however, Melanie continued her cheating, then I would want to move on. By the end of the year, he also informed me that 2 of the 3 judges that we could get to hear our divorce case were bleeding heart liberals and almost always sided with the woman when it comes to support. They usually gave the woman at least 60% of the household income and assets. I had already figured that out and would be doing something about that if it went the way the lawyer pictured it. I would be working to let her live in our house and give her money to run around with. That would not happen. I had to think, could Melanie and I get past this? I loved her. Maybe this was a one-time thing. I just didn't know if I could get past this. I guess if she came to me before Thanksgiving and confessed, I could possibly get over it in time. I'd give her every opportunity to tell me, but I would also give her the opportunity to cheat. The rest of the week went as normal, well, as normal as I could act. I didn't initiate and so no sex, which was now my plan since Halloween. Friday, Andy came into my office and asked if we could talk. I said, now is a great time, just waiting for the weekend. I got the right girl. She's 35 years old, looks like someone's mother, and agreed to get the STD, so she will be ready by next Friday. How is she going to do that? Already done. That way, she will be infectious yet not show any signs. How long till there are signs? I asked. Usually 2-3 weeks. Perfect, I said. Thanksgiving weekend is Judgment Day, I said to myself. I called the PI and got Jack's routine. He usually stops after work at a hotel restaurant with a bar, has 1 drink, flirts with the waitresses, then he goes home. Perfect, it is great when a plan comes together, and this one was. The weekend was full of more leaf raking. Why can't they all fall at once? 15 more bags to the curb and still more leaves on the trees. I think some of my neighbors are exporting them to my yard just to see me get frustrated. Oh well, it kept me out of the house, and Melanie didn't come and help me this time. Thank God for small blessings. Sunday morning, church. KJ and me again, no Melanie. KJ said something to me after church. Dad, is everything okay? Sure, why do you ask? I know you, Dad, you're not acting like normal. I hated to lie to my daughter, but I couldn't have her telling her mom or cluing her in on any of this, so I told her, just a lot of things going on at work. Don't tell your mom anything, you know how she'll worry. I don't want that, especially going into the holidays. Okay, Dad. I hope it is nothing too serious, but you know we'll get through it, whatever it is. I smiled at her, knowing that was true, my daughter would get through it just fine. We've raised a great daughter, I thought. After church, we went home, and Melanie had lunch ready. We ate as normal, and then Melanie asked KJ if she wanted to go shopping that afternoon to get some ideas for Christmas. She said sure, Mom, that sounds great. Dad, do you want to come? Nah, I'll let the two of you have some mother-daughter bonding time. After lunch, they left, and I decided to check my laptop downstairs. I hadn't checked it yet, I guess I didn't want to know, really. There was a lot of nothing for the most part. I did hear one half of a conversation Melanie had with Jack. Oh, hi Jack. How's my L doing? I started burning with anger. He's doing fine. Back to normal, he gets those occasionally. I can't wait to see you again either. With the holidays coming up, I'm sure I can use shopping as an excuse to see you. We'll have to figure out a time and place to meet. Hey, KJ is coming in the door. I'll talk to you later. So, another roll in the hay with Jack. At least it's not in our bed. I'll have to get the PI to get whatever he can for me. Monday morning, I spoke with Andy, set it up for Friday night at the hotel bar. The hooker's story is she's having a drink to calm herself down before she goes home to her husband to tell him she lost her job. She hopes he doesn't get violent again, misery loves company. By Friday, Jack will either have lost his job or be afraid he's going to. Brad called ABC Die and asked to speak to the owner. He told him that we were pulling our business as of next Monday. The owner bowed and said, "Why?" Brad did just as I had asked. The owner said, "Let me check into this and call you right back." He was probably bricks, we represented over half of their business. They would have to either get new business fast or start laying people off. Brad got a call back and was told that he would be assigned a new salesperson and he could match any quote from any of his competitors. Brad told him to send the new salesperson over, and we talk on Wednesday afternoon. Brad asked me to sit in on the meeting. The new salesperson and the owner were there, hat in hand. We talked, and by the end of the meeting, it was obvious to us that the owner was livid with the way we had been treated by the previous salesperson. We told him, he walked in here like he owned the place and that our business was assured never to go away. We did agree that we would use them as our backup on an occasional basis. It was quitting time, so we headed out the door. I called my PI and told him to hit the bar tonight, tomorrow, and Friday night to see if Jack showed up, especially on Friday when my other plan was to take effect. Also, I wanted pictures. Thursday, Jack must have been called onto the carpet. I'm sure he was told that he lost that account, a huge hit to his commission. When I got home that night, I told Melanie that I was going into the basement to clean my rifle for the weekend. While I was down there, I got a call from the PI. Jack had been at the bar and had 3 drinks, definitely worried about something. When I came back up from the basement, I asked Melanie when dinner would be ready. She was lost in thought, I had to ask her a second time. She looked up and said, "Oh, I guess I'll order pizza." "Okay," I said. "Let me know when it gets here. I'm going to get my hunting gear together." When the pizza arrived, we sat down to eat. KJ was at a friend's, so it was just Melanie and me. She seemed distant, but I wasn't going to be the one to bring it up. As we finished the pizza in silence, she said, "Is something going on at work?" "Well, business has been slow lately. They're blaming it on the election and the holidays though." "Is your job secure?" she asked hesitantly. "I think so. I've been there for almost 20 years. I am the top-paid person at the plant, other than the plant manager and the CFO. Though, I had to put a little fear of the gravy train coming to an end." "Why do you ask?" "Mary called me and told me that Jack said there were big doings at your plant." "Don't worry, honey," I said. "I'm sure I would have heard or seen something if there were. Jack is worried about his job. Your plant is half their business. If you go down, then so do they. I guess I'll have to keep my eyes and ears open more at work to see if I can figure this out. The plant is shut down tomorrow for deer season. It will be just us engineers and maintenance employees there to see if we can get our processes more efficient and dependable. I may even be able to get off a little early, and we can get a little pre-deer hunting run of our own going. How can you think of that when we might be in financial straits soon? What if you lose your job? How could we survive?" I knew she would shoot me down. Good, I wasn't going there anyways. "Maybe you should call Jack and talk to him about what he has heard," she said. "I'll talk to Brad tomorrow if I see him." "I'm sure you're worrying for nothing." "I hope so." "Mary's really worried," she said. Friday morning, I went into work. When production is shut down, maintenance goes into overdrive and needs engineering support. I was too busy to think about anything until about 3 o'clock. I called my PI and made sure he was all set. He said, "No problem. I already have it set that if Jack grabs a room, he'll be getting one. I've already set up my hidden cameras and recording devices. Sometimes it amazes me what a couple $100 will get you." "Thanks, Bob. Let me know when you get anything. I'd like to see what you get." "Tomorrow morning if that works for you. My wife thinks I'm going hunting, so I can be out until dark. I was going to try to bag a buck tomorrow morning, but should be back by noon. Will that work for you?" "That's great. Should I meet you at your office?" "Sounds good. Make it 12:30 just in case I actually get one this year. I've struck out the last 3 years, so I'm not really counting on it, but a guy can hope, can't he?" "Gotcha." I hung up. I had one more call to make. I needed to call my bank and start the process for a home equity loan. I was going to pull out as much as I could get just in case we did reconcile. I had to make sure there was no prepayment penalty. I got an appointment for Monday at 9 a.m. I could always cancel if Melanie got a guilty conscience and came clean over the weekend. When I got home, Melanie wasn't home from work yet, so I went downstairs and checked the laptop. Nothing new. I brought my gun and hunting gear up and put them by the front door, ready for the morning. I went into the kitchen, grabbed a beer, sat on the couch, and contemplated life. Well, my life, anyways. Melanie walked in a few minutes later. One last chance, I thought to myself. "Hey babe, I got home a little early and thought we could reconnect. How about we go upstairs, and I show you I love you?" "Honey, we don't have to do that for me to know you love me. I'm not in the mood right now. Maybe tomorrow after you get back from hunting." "What time do you think you'll be back?" I sighed and said, "Probably about 5 o'clock or so. I don't want to be out in the woods when it starts getting dark. Some hunters get anxious as the sun starts to go down, and we shoot at anything that moves." I wondered if she wanted to try to give me sloppy seconds again. "So what's for dinner?" I asked. "Manwich," she said. I just laughed to myself. KJ came in shortly after that, and we set the table for dinner. We sat down and started eating. "KJ, have I ever told you about the first time your mom made me manwich?" "Yeah, Dad, she forgot the hamburger," she said, chuckling. Melanie gave me a look that could kill. She hated when I brought that up. "Well, she sure has changed since then. Now she's the best cook I know," I said, but Melanie's glare didn't change. After dinner, KJ got ready to go out, so it would again be only Melanie and me at home tonight. We watched some TV. At 8:30, I said, I'm going to go to bed so I can be up and out in the woods by dawn. One last chance, I thought to myself as I said, do you want to join me? It's only 8:30. If I go to bed now, I'll wake up at 3 o'clock and not be able to get back to sleep. Well, a guy can try, so off to bed I went. My alarm went off at 4:30, and I was out the door by 5 o'clock. I went to Denny's and ordered a Grand Slam with everything. I sat there thinking of the past 20 years with Melanie. Where had we gone wrong? Why was she doing this?
Could I forgive her? Could my love for her overcome this?
When the food came, I picked at it. I really wasn't hungry. I just sat there and thought about the happy times.
Were they now all behind us?
After about an hour and a half, I got up, food only half gone, threw it on the table, and walked out. I drove around and found myself down by the Detroit River. I stared across the river at Windsor. I've lived here for almost 20 years and haven't done much to achieve my goals. I've never even been to Canada's capital. I need to change that. I would see every state capitol building, and I would hike around Europe. I should have plenty of free time soon. After a while, I drove to the plant. I walked in and saw the maintenance people working on their projects. I knew that there was a good possibility that within the year, I may not be here. When my marriage falls apart, I will have to move. I had put my heart and soul into my marriage, yet that was probably gone. My job here would be too. KJ would be gone to college, there would be nothing tying me to this place. I sat in my office till noon, then I got up and headed to the Pie's office. Even seeing what he got would not cheer me up. Just as expected, my plan worked. Misery loves company, and Jack was a horn dog, so he took the housewife that had just lost her job to the room we had set up and screwed her. I wondered then if he would get chlamydia immediately. I didn't know. Well, in 2 weeks, it would be Thanksgiving weekend, and I planned to have to be out of town on an emergency. All weekend, if Melanie didn't catch it before then, she surely would. Then I have to admit, Jack was smooth. He listened to her story of how she lost her job, how her husband would be pissed and probably slap her around. Then he told her, you just needed to feel the gentle touch of a soft caress. You should never have to take someone hitting you. He talked his way into her remorse and anxiety. He told her that he would get her a room and could spend the night there and face her husband in the morning or leave. A woman should never put up with being beaten. Maybe I should stay here tonight. I should call him and tell him I have to work late on a project or something. That's a good idea. You make the call, I'll get the room for you. I can't ask you to do that for me, she said. What kind of man would I be if I didn't help out a damsel in distress, he said. Those words struck me deep. I had been Melanie's knight in shining armor, saving the damsel in distress all those years ago. Now, those words tasted like bile in my throat. We watched as they entered the room. He was so gentle, asking if she would be okay, wondering if he could do anything else for her. You're so nice, would you just hold me for a while? Wow, Andy knew how to pick them. She was great, she deserved an Oscar for her performance. He hugged her for a minute or so, then said, well, I should go. I'll let you relax and think about what you want to do with your future. No, don't leave, not yet. Well, I could probably get away with staying for an hour or so. I should get home to my wife. She probably wouldn't miss me, though. The love has gone out of our marriage. I can't believe that, you're so loving and caring. How could she not appreciate that, he questioned. It's been so long since we've done anything even remotely romantic, he said. Then they looked in each other's eyes and kissed passionately. Soon, they were taking off their clothes. There was a sense of urgency in their actions. Jack grabbed her and fell onto the bed with her, both of them naked in each other's arms. She pulled back. Let me show you love. I want to please you, she said as she moved down his body and gave him a blowjob. After just a few minutes, Jack said, wow, you give great head. How could anyone not love you? Then she laid him back on the bed and got on top of him, cowgirl style. She sighed heavily as he entered her. "You're so much bigger than he is, you fill me up. I'm on the pills, so don't hold back, give me all you've got." "I like it when you talk dirty," Jack said. "You are a secret 304, aren't you, Jack?" Jack didn't know how right he was. Then he took over. "You like it like that, you secret 304, she said. "Oh yes," then he started to stick his finger in her bum. She flinched and said, "I don't want to do that. I've never done that before." "Don't knock it until you try it, my secret 304, he said. "I don't know, that seems like it would hurt. Let me get the hand lotion from the bathroom, that will make it go a lot easier." "I don't know." "Listen, 304, he said forcefully, "you'll try it and you'll like it, okay? Go get the lotion," she said. When he pulled out of her and went into the bathroom, she got up, slipped her dress over her body, grabbed her shoes, bra, and panties, and quickly ran to the door. He came out of the bathroom and looked towards the door. She flipped him off and closed the door. He screamed, "You witch!" He was pissed. He had been holding back from his climax, so now he had blue balls. He had to take care of that. He went into the bath and jacked off into the sink. He left it there, got dressed, and left. After Bob and I watched the video, we laughed. "Well, he got what he deserved," Bob said. "More than you know, Bob, more than you know," I said. I took the DVD, thanked Bob, and told him to send me the final bill. "I don't think I'll need your services anymore. I've got everything I need." I got home around 4 o'clock. Melanie was cleaning the house, changing the bedding, doing laundry. "Wow, not busy at the shelter today. I wasn't expecting you home till 5 o'clock. I was going to start dinner." "So, did you kill Bambi?" she said. "No, but I got a good look at a buck trying to control a doe, but she got pissed and ran away." "Well, I'm not sorry to hear that," she said. Neither was I. "It was a great show," I chuckled. "I'm going to go downstairs and clean and oil my gun and put it up until next year." "You're not going back out this season, you've got 2 weeks, she asked. "No, the thrill is gone. Maybe next year." I went downstairs and put my gun away. No reason to clean it if I hadn't even taken it out of the case. I took this opportunity to check my laptop to see if I had caught anything. I saw her get ready for work and leave about 8:30. Then she was back at noon. It was either a slow day at the shelter or she was planning on an all-nighter. Knowing that I wouldn't be home for hours, she made a phone call. I wondered if she was calling Jack. "Hi Mary," she said. It still amazed me that she apparently felt no guilt because she could call and talk to Mary like nothing was going on. It made me wonder if maybe Mary knew. She listened as Mary spoke. "Yeah, it was a slow day, and I couldn't keep my mind off what you said about Jack and his job." I thought to myself, yeah, I bet you couldn't keep your mind off of Jack and his tool is what you really meant. She listened again. "I wish I could hear the other half of the conversation," I said to myself. No, in fact, he's out shooting Bambi right now, or at least trying. He doesn't seem concerned. He can be clueless at times though. There it was, clueless, maybe at home but not at my job. She listened again. "Yeah, I guess." Afterwards, I put my dishes in the dishwasher and decided I'd hit the leaves again. I love nature, but this gets to be a pain. I think my next place I live will be a condo, so someone else can be responsible for these leaves. I went upstairs and changed into my Cornell College sweats. Perhaps this would get Melanie to think of the old days when we were young and happy. Maybe she would start to feel guilty for what she is doing to us. If she came to me now, would I be able to forgive her and continue in this marriage? I just didn't know. One thought kept coming into my head, why is she freely giving herself to Jack, but I have to beg and haven't had any sex since August? I went out and raked leaves. It gave me time to think. If she came to me before Thanksgiving, I would forgive her, but things would need to change. I would need to know why. I would need our sex life to change drastically, and she would have to understand that it would take a lot of hard work to regain my trust. After a few hours, I had another 15 bags sitting at the curb. I went into the house and went up to my room to change. Melanie called to me, "I'm going to run to the store, do you want anything special?" Just a faithful wife, I said softly to myself, "No, thanks," though, and called back down to her. When she left, I went down into the basement to check the laptop. I heard Melanie's side of a phone call. "Hello, Jack. How is my lover today? Just thinking of you." "Oh, definitely that and more." "Yeah, they are at church." "No, they will be back any time now." "No time for that." "I miss you too." "So, how are you doing? Are you really that worried?" "No, Kurt doesn't seem worried." "I can't help but be worried, though. I don't know what we'd do if he lost his job." "So, what are you going to do?" "That's a good idea. I think I'll encourage Kurt to create a resume. All it will have on it is the one job, though. That might not be enough." "Sure, I'll have him use you as a reference. I think I hear the garage door going up, I'll have to talk to you later." By now, so Jack definitely was worried about his job, yet he still had time to think about screwing my wife. Was my marriage over? Was there no turning back? Almost 20 years down the drain with nothing to show for it? No, that wasn't right. KJ was what we had to show for it. Just thinking about her made me feel it was worth it. Monday morning found me in the office talking to some of the women who came in contact with the salespeople that call on us. I asked, "Have you met the new salesperson from ABC Dye yet?" They all said yes, and they seemed to like him. A couple of them commented that they were glad we got a new one, the other one gave them the creeps. I told them that they should tell Brad about any inappropriate things said or done by Mr. Anderson and don't be afraid to speak up in the future. I called the bank and found out that I needed to sign a few documents, and within 3 weeks, I would have my equity loan approved. I was surprised with the soft housing market how much my house was worth. I had bought it during the last soft market, so even though this market was worse, I still had quite a bit of equity. Later in the morning, I asked to talk to Brad again. He told me to come right in. "Kurt, thanks," Brad said. "So, how are things on the home front?" "No better," I said. "Well, I have to tell you, I had a couple of the office women come to me first thing this morning to tell me that they were glad they wouldn't be seeing Mr. Anderson anymore. They told me of a few comments that he had made in the past that made them feel uncomfortable. I told them if ever in the future anyone makes them feel that way, they should let me know immediately." "Well, I'm sorry that they had to put up with that," I said. "Well, we won't have to worry about that anymore." I called the owner and told him. He told me that Mr. Anderson would be let go today. When he told me that, I told him we may have more work for him soon, then I smiled. I hated to hurt Mary, but whether she knew it or not, she was getting hurt by her husband already. "Hey, Brad, I'd like to talk to you about my future with the company." "You're not quitting, are you?" he said, with a look of a deer caught in headlights. "I think I'd like to pursue a transfer to the London, Ontario plant. Either that or the New Jersey plant, preferably Ontario, though. Once everything is settled with the divorce, I would be happy to transfer back if you'll have me, Brad. I think I can make it happen, but I want you back here." I chose London because I wasn't sure if I would be paying alimony, but it may be harder to collect if I'm in another country. Also, Brad, I'd like to be terminated on the 15th of December. I have 4 weeks of vacation and 10 personal days that I'd like to use at that point. If I go to court, I want them to see that I am without employment. I don't want you to do anything illegal, so if I have to get fired and rehired in London, that would be okay with me. I'll lose my seniority, but it would be worth it. Melanie would find herself having to go back to work somewhere. Not sure after 18 years if her degree would help her at all. A lot has changed in human resources in those years. That would be payback number 3 after the Chaya and the divorce. Now who is the clueless one? After I got back to my office, I called Ben in New Jersey to ask about Cornell University. He told me it was already in the works and she should have her acceptance letter within a couple of weeks. Awesome, one more thing to check off my list, I said. I called Cornell's administration and asked for the Dean of Admissions. They put me right through. I told him my daughter was planning on attending and I wondered if I could pay her for year tuition, room and board, and book costs ahead of time. He sounded happy and said, sure, as soon as she is accepted, we can work up a total for you. I thanked him and gave him my contact information, another thing to check off my list. I decided to wait to talk to Brad about my plans for Thanksgiving weekend. I might use that time to check out the plant and check on living accommodations. I called the lawyer and spoke to him. I told him that if I went ahead with the divorce, I wanted her to be served on December 20th in the afternoon at my house. I wondered if I could be that specific. I knew it was a Saturday, and I would be willing to pay extra for that. He assured me that they could arrange that, all I needed to do was let him know a week ahead of time. Then I called a florist. I needed to find out if I could have a delivery on December 20th at a specific time. I would need a guarantee that you can do that, I asked. Yes, we can do that. We just need an address and at least 3 days' notice. There will be an extra charge because we will have to send a delivery person on a separate run. No problem, I said, telling them I will call the first of that week if I need it to happen. I still wasn't sure, there was no turning back. Could we reconcile? Thanksgiving weekend would be the deadline. I asked them, if I wanted 17 red roses and a black rose, how far in advance do you need to know? Just a week, they assured me. If I wanted it in an 8 1/2 by 11 box, would that be possible? That isn't a standard flower box, but we could use a box that a ream of paper comes in and decorate it so it doesn't look like a paper box. Would that be okay with you? Sure, thank you. I will call you next month and let you know all the details, another thing checked off my list. I'd have to wait until December 20th to mail out the DVD to Mary, and on Christmas Day, I'd be emailing Jack a picture of himself with the hooker and hoping he had enjoyed his present. For Melanie, I wanted to make a photo album of all the happy memories of our time together. I know I may sound like an a-hole, but I wanted her to feel the guilt of what she threw away. I probably should talk to KJ about taking a trip to Cornell University to see the campus. I know she would miss spending time with her grandparents, but if I was right, they would be kind of busy dealing with Melanie. I'd have to let KJ know we'd be leaving at 4 o'clock on December 20th, but not to tell her mom. I should probably wait until after Thanksgiving to tell her about that. That weekend would be the litmus test of our marriage, whether it was a base upon which we could rebuild it or an acid that destroys it. At lunch, I talked to Brad again and asked him if I could take off the rest of the day. He said, sure, see you in the morning. I would really miss working with him. I hope that I would be able to come back to work with him soon. I went home, Melanie wasn't there. I wondered if she was at work or maybe consoling her lover. I went downstairs and checked the computer, no calls recorded, so maybe she was at work. I decided that now would be a good time to start going through my stuff, you know, the crap we all save thinking that it will be needed someday. I would start on the filing cabinet. She would never notice if I weeded through all the old taxes and owner manuals for things we no longer needed. I was able to clear out almost 3 drawers of crap. I postponed dealing with the important paperwork, i.e., house purchase, major appliances, medical bills. I'd look through those later. I would be including a lot of that in the memory photo album for Melanie, almost 20 years of marriage cleaned out and in the shredder. Next, I found the shoe boxes with all of our photos, at least the ones before the digital age, that is. I put them in the filing cabinet so they would all be together when I started that project. I would need to go through the photos on our computer to print off copies of those also, or maybe I would download them and have a copy or print them on photo quality paper. I wanted to make this look professional, didn't I? Then I decided to go out to the garage and organize and pack up my tools. Melanie would never notice those either. I put them in boxes and stored them in the basement. When it came time to move my stuff out, it would be up the stairs, out the garage, into my car. At about 4:30, I decided to throw some steaks on the grill. It was cold out, but I really enjoy steak fresh off the grill. I also grilled some corn on the cob and asparagus. I threw 3 potatoes in the oven to bake, and around 5:30, both Melanie and KJ were home.
You made dinner? What time did you get home?
Melanie asked me. It was slow at work, so I took off half a day, I said. That would get Melanie even more worried. We sat down to dinner, and Melanie said, I got a call from Mary, Jack was laid off today. Laid off? More like fired, I thought to myself. That's terrible, I said. What is he going to do? Get his resume out there and try to find another job, she said. It's a good thing Mary has a job, I said, one more jab to give Melanie a little more anxiety.
Are you sure your company is okay?
You did say that it was slow, she said anxiously. As far as I know, we are, I said. We finished the rest of the meal with KJ telling us about what was going on in her life, typical teenage things. But it was good to listen to her. Boy, would I miss that when I was gone. You bet I would be calling her on a regular basis. Though the next few days went by with no new developments, and yes, no sex again, that was okay because I wasn't going to take any chances. It was Thursday, 1 week before Thanksgiving. Melanie, KJ, and I were sitting down to dinner. KJ says, Mom, Dad, yes? Melanie said, Kelly asked me if I could join her family for a ski trip to Colorado over the Thanksgiving weekend. When would you be leaving? She sheepishly said, Wednesday afternoon, right after the half day at school. Melanie, were your parents flying up for Thanksgiving this year? No, they are just coming the Saturday before Christmas and staying for a week. Well, my parents are spending time with my youngest brother and their new baby, so it's okay with me if it is okay with your mom, I said. Mom, is it okay? Yeah, I suppose your dad and I will just have Thanksgiving by ourselves. It will be practice for when you leave for college next fall. Thanks, Mom. Thanks, Dad. I'll call Kelly and tell her after dinner. I guess we're going to have to start getting used to being alone, Melanie, I said, looking at my wife. She had no idea how alone she would become next year if she didn't come clean soon. But then again, maybe I would be the only one alone. I wondered if Mary would divorce Jack. If so, Melanie would be with Jack. The rest of the dinner had KJ talking about where they were planning on going, staying, and what they were planning on doing. Sometimes, women can talk non-stop without anyone else saying a word. It did sound fun, though. It made me think that I hadn't been to Colorado's Capitol building yet. I needed to start doing something to reach my personal goals. The next morning, I made an appointment to talk to Brad. He was someone I could confide in. I stepped into his office at 2 o'clock. Brad, I would like to talk to you about Thanksgiving weekend.
Are you and the family going somewhere?
Do you need a few extra days? He asked. No, just the opposite. KJ is going to go skiing in Colorado for the weekend with one of her friends and the family. I want to give Melanie enough rope to hang herself, figuratively, that is. I'd like to have an emergency at the New Jersey plant that would take me out of town Thursday evening through Monday afternoon. That should be more than enough time for her and Jack to get together. I'm betting it will be at my house, so I'll have proof. Wow, you really don't think you two can work it out? If she comes clean before Thanksgiving weekend, then there is a chance. If not, and she does what I think she will do, then it's all over. But the crying, I said, that last expression tongue-in-cheek, but it was more true than I wanted to admit. So, what do you want from me? Brad asked. I need you to make a call to me Thanksgiving afternoon and tell me I have a flight booked for 7 p.m. I'll make sure Melanie picks up the phone so she'll know it is from you and she'll believe it's legit. Okay, I can do that.
What if she comes clean before then?
I'll tell you that I can't do it, that I have a wife I need to spend some time with. That would be the truth, I thought to myself. If she did come clean, it would take all weekend to get through this. Driving home for the weekend, part of me hoped she would come clean. I really loved her and would hate to lose what we once had. I thought about it all Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. I was less than talkative, to say the least. Sunday night, I said to KJ and Melanie that since KJ was going to be gone Wednesday, we should all go out to dinner Tuesday evening. That sounds like a great idea, KJ said. I was feeling a little guilty that I would miss Thanksgiving. I'll try to get a reservation at the Lara, that was an upscale restaurant in West Bloomfield. A condemned man gets a last meal, doesn't a condemned marriage deserve the same? Monday, I called the restaurant first thing and was told that, in fact, they did have an opening. The hostess said that Wednesday night was booked, but tomorrow at 7:30 was available. I texted Melanie and KJ and told them we were on for 7:30 tomorrow night. I got a text back immediately from KJ, but didn't hear from Melanie until about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. It made me wonder what she had been doing. Now that Jack was unemployed, I could probably guess. Monday night, Melanie asked me if Jack could use me as a reference on his resume. Sure, I'll take phone calls from potential employers for him, I replied. She came right back with, Mary would really appreciate it. I couldn't wait to get those calls. I'd clue them in on what a horn dog he is. Tuesday night, we had a great dinner. Melanie looked at the menu and said, "Can we afford this?" "Sure, honey. I make good money. Why can't I splurge every once in a while?" We talked about old times, vacations, KJ, sports, and school. We talked for an hour as we ate. It was good to reminisce. If this didn't get Melanie to come clean, I don't think anything would. When we got home, KJ finished packing, and KJ and I took everything over to Kelly so that they could leave right after school. I spoke with Mr. Barons and told him, "Thanks for taking KJ along. Can I pay for her accommodations?" "She's staying in a room with Kelly. There is no extra charge, and I wouldn't think of taking money from you. It's our treat." "Well, thank you. I hope to repay you sometime," I said. "Don't even think about it," he said, and actually sounded quite sincere. On the way home, I gave KJ a couple hundred and told her that when she got back, to call me so I could pick her up. I would have some news for her. She was curious and said, "Tell me now." "No, when you get back. Just make sure you call me to pick you up," I reiterated. "Okay, Dad. Thanks. KJ, you are a great daughter. Make sure you behave while you're in Colorado." "I will, Dad." "I know you will." Then she said something that showed me how perceptive my daughter was. "I hope whatever has been bothering you for the last month gets resolved." Then she kissed my cheek. We pulled into our garage, got out, and she went to bed. I stayed up for a little while longer, just thinking. When I went to bed, Melanie was already asleep. I'm glad she could sleep. I would have another restless night.